That's what it is.
Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to the final Cabinet meeting of 2023. Fire alarm procedures. If the fire alarm is activated, vacate the offices via the stairs. Please do not use the lifts. Assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it's deemed safe to return to the chamber. Please switch off or turn to silent your mobile phones. Do not make or receive meeting calls while the meeting is in progress. Please note this meeting is being live streamed for members of the public. The meeting will also be recorded and will be subsequently available on the internet. Does anybody intend to film the meeting? The following members have asked to speak under Council Procedure Rule 20.1. Item 5, Councillors Pugh and Bayford. Item 6, Councillors Rogers and Rattigan, and item 7, Councillor Pugh. Councillor Scobie.
Just wanted to speak under item 1, Jackie Baker's, please, Chair.
6. Councillor Austin.
6 and 7, please, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Everybody's here, so there are no apologies. Are there any declarations of interest in the item of business on the agenda this evening? No. Minutes of the previous meeting on the 16th of November 2023. Copies attached to the agenda pack. Proposal to take the minutes as read. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Yates. Members agree? Agree. Thank you. So we move on to item 4, which is the Combined Surveillance CCTV Image Recording Technologies Policy. Councillor Keane.
Thank you. CCTV and the use of image recording is now commonplace. From town centre CCTV cameras to building security, dash cams, ring doorbells and mobile phones. The Council's use of CCTV is governed by a profusion of legislation, codes of practice and central government guidance. New and emerging technologies and capabilities, such as artificial intelligence, biometrics or advances in IT system integration, must be considered as an increased risk to individual privacy, and the Council must ensure that it continues to be compliant. In response, the Council has developed this policy, which is intended to regulate the Council's operation and use of image recording systems across all areas of the Council, including when and where CCTV is used. Cabinet is being asked to agree the adoption of Combined Surveillance CCTV Image Recording Technologies Policy and to delegate any operational revisions of the policy to the Heads of Neighbourhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keane. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Yates. Members? Nothing to add. Okay, thank you. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Right, moving on to item 5, the purchase of 24 homes at Tothill Street, Minster, for affordable rent. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader. Tonight, Cabinet is being asked to agree to, firstly, the purchase of 24 new affordable homes using the additional capital budget approved by Council at its meeting on 12th of October 2023, and the letting of these homes in accordance with the Council's allocations policy at an affordable rent as set out in the Council's tenancy strategy. Earlier this year, officers were contacted by BDW, Barrett's Homes, who are required to deliver 24 new affordable homes as part of their development at Tothill Street in Minster. The requirement for these homes is set out in the Section 106 obligations for the development. They have been unable to secure an affordable housing provider to deliver these homes, which would put 24 affordable homes at risk of disappearing if a provider were not found. In July this year, Council approved an accelerated affordable rented housing programme of at least 400 new homes constructed or acquired by 2027. These properties progress towards this total, which currently stands at 123 properties acquired or in progress within the first 4 months of this strategy. The capital cost for the 24 homes is £3.2 million, with £50,000 for associated costs. As the homes have been designated as affordable homes in the planning consent and Section 106 agreement, they have been designed specifically for that purpose and accordingly are considered appropriate for the HRA, in line with the needs of households on the council's register or those living in temporary accommodation. There is a significant level of need for one-bedroom homes on our housing list, as well as for larger family homes. The unit sizes and the mix of homes are as follows: 8 one-bed units and 16 two-bed units. It is proposed that the new homes are let in accordance with the council's adopted allocations policy on a genuinely affordable rent set out within our tenancy strategy. As discussed in detail previously, all potential acquisitions are considered by finance within a robust business plan outline. No project will be brought forward if it is considered to not be a good investment for the portfolio or represents excessive risk. Our options are as follows. Option 3.1, to approve the purchase of 24 Section 106 units and delegate authority to officers to conclude the due diligence and complete the purchase. Or 3.2, do not purchase the Section 106 units, which would mean that the developer would negotiate a commuted sum, losing the affordable housing units. These homes are far more than figures. They have the capacity to change lives, create stability both for individuals and for our larger housing market, and enable us to further grow our ability to provide secure housing for residents through revenue generation. I move recommendation 3.1 for the purchase of homes that stand to make a huge difference to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Alban, and speaking under 20.1, Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Whitehead, for introducing this. I'd first like to say that as the previous ward councillor for the Thanet villages, I know that this development, wider development, is incredibly unpopular with residents, but the one thing that wasn't unpopular was the affordable housing that would be brought forward. And I'm delighted to see the quantum of the affordable is what was agreed under the previous plan application, because that was through conversations with the developer and with Minster Parish Council about the need for these smaller units, these 1-2 bedroom units, because they're actually what is harder for people who need to live in affordable housing. That's the real kind of shortage, particularly in the villages. What I am concerned about is not us bailing out developers or anything like that. I appreciate if there's not any housing associations that want to take this on. It makes sense for us to do that, 100%. But I suppose from my own experience, I know that a lot of developers quite like having some affordable housing within a development, because normally the housing associations pay for those units up front before they're built in full, and that then helps them to effectively fund more of the development build, so they can build more of the units before they sell them. So my only question really is that this payment, if it is agreed tonight, will it be made in full now, or is there a certain point where it will be handed over to developer upon completion of the units? That's just all that I really want to understand, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. That's an interesting question. Do you want to respond, Councillor White?
Of course. Thank you, Councillor Pugh. I think for me, especially in terms of more contentious developments, as you were saying, the one thing that we all generally agree on is that it's the affordable units that we need. The delivery model that we have is effectively determined by central government. We have a delivery system that provides affordable housing only through those developments or through councils choosing to invest and build our own stock, both of which we do here. So the only real option I see in terms of what we do now is to take on the affordable units, because a commuted sum simply doesn't provide what we actually need, which is the housing, especially in areas where it's particularly difficult to afford, such as Minster. At the moment, as far as I'm aware, so we're still within the due diligence and contract negotiation point, but I'm happy to pass on to the lovely Ashley if she has further information on the timetable.
Thank you. So we haven't agreed, these haven't even started on site, these units, probably as you're aware. We haven't agreed the units that we've bought, we're in the process of buying at Spitfire Green. We've done a turnkey arrangement, so we're paying on completion. So they're handing them over, then we're paying. We could do this with this site, or we could do a development agreement where we do make stage payments, but we haven't discussed that with Barrett's at all at the moment. Do you want to add anything?
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything further to say, Councillor Whitehead?
Yay, 123 homes. Other than that, no. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bayford.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. I very much welcome the purchase of these affordable homes, particularly the smaller units, which, as you said, we very much need. I'm interested to know, as we are acquiring them from the start, are we able to influence the energy efficiency of the homes and consequently the EPC rating? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rayford. Yes, bluntly. So what we're doing at the moment, considering the strategy that we're taking forward, is putting together a specification that we would like from developers. So currently we have our own specification that we work to relating to our builds, which obviously we have a large degree of control over. What we would like to be doing is producing a specification so that for purchases that we are making early on in the process, we have the ability to work with developers on producing housing that matches what we would like to see within housing stock overall. But a lot of the specifications that we're looking at currently in terms of procurement are very high. It's been lovely seeing the standard of a lot of the builds developing so far. So yes, we do have a specification in the pipeline currently so that hopefully we can continue building housing stock that we're incredibly proud of. Thank you.
So does that mean, will these homes be, EPC-wise, be in the same rating as the rest of the estate, or will it are our homes specific?
So each development is different, but simultaneously developers are held to particular standards when they are producing housing. So our aim generally is to get to EPC B. I think if I pass over to Ash, I'm not sure what we have on the ones that we've produced thus far.
So like you said, these are in early stages, so we have got specification to influence them. The units on the Spitfire Green, obviously, were already built. Our own development will be EPC A, so they'll be very low carbon homes. But yeah, we will do as much as we can to influence the EPC on these. These are at least C, so we'll work on them. Yeah. Minimum of C, that's why I was wondering. Yeah, but these are in early stages, and our specification will inform them.
Thank you, Councillor Bayford.
Members, any comments, questions? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we agree the purchase of 24 new affordable homes using the additional capital budget approved by Council on the 12th of October and the letting of these homes in accordance with the Council's allocation policy at an affordable rent as set out in the Council's tenancy strategy. Do members agree? Agree. Thank you. Item 6, Jackie Baker's Recreation Ground. Councillor Alban.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. This report to Cabinet sets out the proposals for approval for improvements at Jackie Baker's Recreation Ground in Ramsgate. The report refers to a petition that was received by the Council in June about the management of Jackie Baker's Recreation Ground and describes the actions taken since then. The recommendations include, or were to include, the demolition of the existing pavilion subject to planning approval, but I'm pleased to advise members that planning consent was approved last night, which is a great step forward. Following the demolition of this building, it's proposed that temporary facilities are provided with team changing rooms, showers, officials changing, storage and toilets. The report also proposes the adoption of a master plan, which can be found at Annex 1 of the report, for the future development of the site. The master plan proposals are not currently funded, but the adoption of the plan will inform direction and represent a first step towards securing the required funding for the long-term future of Jackie Baker's. The report further proposes that authority be delegated to investigate the options for a future development on the site based on the master plan, including car parking, a new pavilion and other sporting and recreational facilities that might enhance the offer at the site. A further report will be presented to the overview and scrutiny panel and the Cabinet once these options have been further explored. I would add at this point that obviously we will also be going out to the public for, during a consultation for their views on the master plan. I would also say that that at overview and scrutiny, the members of the committee came up with 3 proposals, of which I'm pleased to take on board, which are as follows. That wording is added to recommendation C as follows: approves a public engagement exercise to inform the master planning of Jackie Baker's based on section 1 of the draft master plan attached to Annex 1. 2, that the council explores facilities that will be installed that will encourage safe enjoyment of Jackie Baker's by girls and young women. And 3, to ensure the temporary changing facilities are properly insured and secured, and that's a no-brainer anyway. We would do that as a matter of course. So therefore, Leader, I propose the recommendations as laid out within the report, and also the requirements laid down by overview and scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Duckworth. And speaking under 20.1, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Alban. I'm pleased to see the investment in Jackie Baker's for the benefit of all users on this site. My query is on 2.2b, a review of the bins on the site has been completed, but there's no mention of have we got extra bins that people were complaining about? What's the outcome, please? And the other point is the housing plan states the houses are 3-bedroom, up to 5 people, but there's only space for 1 car. Surely.
I don't think we're considering the housing tonight, Councillor Rogers.
Okay.
I appreciate
just
that
noticed it
it's in the master plan, but that will go to planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I haven't been advised of whether the extra bins have been put in. I've asked for that. I'm not sure if Mr. Marmer will be able to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm advised by the head of cleansing that a review was done of the placement of the bins and that actually the bins were in the right locations. They haven't as of yet added any further bins, and they're monitoring the scenarios that are going on at Jackie Baker's to see if there is an alternate location where a bin is needed. So they're doing reviews every week on that at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Rattigan.
Thank you very much. Just a question regard to Councillor Alban. The cost of demolition seems sort of rather high. Just to know how you sort of come by them figures. Given sort of the national average is about £115 per square metre, and if the whole site was covered in asbestos, normally it's about £55 per square metre on top. Even with that, it's coming to about 100,000, and we've got a figure of about £250,000. I'm just concerned where that figure's come from, because it seems quite high.
Yeah, I think we did have a discussion about that at scrutiny from what I can remember, but I'm sure that we can revisit it. Do you want to speak on that, Mr. Marmon?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, you're right. What we've done is we've done a internal survey of the site. There is asbestos on the site, which we've added a premium on. There's also utility specs that are for full flood lighting of the site, which were never introduced. And that utility spec is very high, which is also going to need to be removed. So based on that, we have put the demolition costs at a level that we think is the maximum it can be. We are currently seeking quantity surveyors' final analysis as part of the procurement exercise to get the contractor for the demolition if this was approved tonight. So as it stands at the moment, we've done an internal survey and put it at a level that we think is the highest it possibly could be.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Orban, for your sort of introduction. It sort of answered one of the questions, because one of the reasons I wanted to speak under this was I wasn't clear on the report where, and being a relatively new councillor, how recommendations from overview and scrutiny came to Cabinet. But you sort of covered that point. I know you were watching it. So I guess I'm just, as one of the ward councillors, just welcoming the work that's been put into this, thankful to the Cabinet for moving this. I did have a question based on your comments, Councillor Orban, and then just one from the officer talking about bins. So you mentioned that there will be a report coming back at a future overview and scrutiny in Cabinet. I'm assuming that's going to be difficult to put timescales on, but do we have a rough idea of weeks, months, years? And then secondly, the consultation we've referred to, when are we likely that to start? And then specifically to officer about the bins, clearly take the point around not moving the bins as they are. They're in good positions, but I think part of it was also, would more bins help? Because there's 2 bins for a place that size, and I think one of the things that will be changing in the future is the amount of throughput traffic, because new houses, new development, we've had schools, new schools placed there. I think in the future there's going to need to be more bins, and it may be I'm surprised in the review that wasn't covered, but maybe more details covered. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Scobie. In relation to the further report, that's going to be relative to the master plan. So that's going to be, I can't give you a rough idea about that. I think we will try and go out to consultation as soon as we can, because we want the feedback from the local residents of what they want and the people who use it want, because the master plan covers quite a number of different sports, and it's whether those sports will be available, whether they will be taken up. So we need to get whatever money that we get and that we can spend on this, that we need to ensure that whatever facilities we provide are going to be taken up and used. And I think that's the important part. I think as well, in relation to the bins, I think as Mr. Marmo has said, we are currently monitoring that and monitoring the use of them to see, whether there is any more needed, and that will come in due course. And if there is, more than happy to put extra ones in there. But I think that once we get the residents involved, it'll open up the consultation, and we'll be able to give a better way forward. And I think a part of those consultations that we're going to take the housing out of that consultation because it is a separate matter to the actual ground there. Did I answer everything or not? Thank you.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Alban. I wanted to repeat what I said at scrutiny, which is it's really excellent to see a response to the petition that residents brought coming forward so promptly and so clearly, and that there's going to be residents' consultation informing this. My question is about how we're going to balance up what we're doing here with what there is elsewhere in Thanet. As we know, we've got a number of parks and recreation areas desperately in need of further injection of facilities and money, and whether now we have new open spaces senior staff in place, whether we're thinking of doing a broader strategy which looks at how we're going to divide our attention, our funds, our work in the future across the area. And I'm thinking in relation to that particularly of what you mentioned earlier, Councillor Alban, Councillor Joanne Bright's very welcome intervention about making sure that all of these facilities are welcoming and appropriate and safe spaces for young women and girls. Thank you.
I think there's quite a broad, you've come with quite a broad brush there across open spaces effectively, and I think as far as, if I just say as far as Jackie Baker's is concerned, there's been no money, if you like, put into Jackie Baker's for a long time, and it's a place, it's a big area, it's well used, and it needs, that's the first one. We hopefully have got our open spaces manager starting in February, so that'll be a big boost. What we'll be looking at as well, we've got, as you're aware, we have a Section 106 officer, so a lot of those parks open and play areas and stuff, we'll be looking to ensure that that money goes into those areas and done. But I'm sure once our open spaces manager comes in, Mr. Marmar will be obviously working closely with him, is it he, and you know the work will be planned out. So which obviously we've lost that for quite some time. So effectively, open spaces lost its way a bit. So we're hoping to drag that back in, and then we can work on. And we're looking at. I mean, if it's me, look at the worst ones first, and try and do them, and the better ones need, you know, then they can get worse before we. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Right, members, I've got a question, unusually. I'd wonder if Mr. Marmar can give us any idea of the timescales in terms of the demolition of the pavilion and the temporary portal cabin facility, because I think we are concerned about the safety of the existing building. And I appreciate that the funding has to be approved by council, but I think that the timescale for demolishing the building isn't necessarily limited by that. So could you say when you think that we'll be in a position to demolish the pavilion?
As soon as we've got approval to spend the funding, we will then go through a procurement exercise with the contractor, and that procurement exercise will take something from sort of 3 months, roughly around about, to achieve a signed contractor. Then it's down to the contractor's mobilisation period, and we would hope that would be a month to 2 months. The actual demolition of the building can be done quite rapidly. The key thing that we need to make sure and get a timescale on is the utilities part, because that's the bit where we're reliant on certain contractors that do have lead-in scales. So I would like to think that the full demolition would take roughly a month to do. Add that to the sort of 3 months lead-in for procurement and the mobilisation time. Hopefully we'll be demolished within 6 month period.
I mean, I think it's quite important that the residents understand that, because they'll see us make a decision, but if they don't see anything happen and they think the timescales are different from what we might like, then that can lead to lead to disappointment and speculation that we've changed our mind, which we haven't and won't.
I think, Chair, if I
Yeah.
just come back on that, I think one of the good things that's come out of this is that the rapport between the residents who put the petition in, myself and with Mr Marmo, is very, very good. And we contact each other, so I'll let them know what's going on and whatever, as I will probably tomorrow with this, so keep them up to speed with it all.
And I think that obviously the master plan is fantastic, but we've actually got to deliver on it, and that's the challenge that faces us. But I think in terms of Jackie Baker's, because of its central location and because of the size of it, it's an opportunity for it to be a flagship facility for the council. So taking on board what Councillor Austin said about other places needing money, which it certainly does, but I don't think we should be afraid of putting a focus on Jackie Baker's and getting that right and showing what we can do. And that's going to, there's more work ahead in order to make that possible. Members, any other discussion? Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, like Councillor Austin, I was really pleased to hear that it was going to encompass the needs for safety for women and girls in open spaces, and I look forward to that being a consideration in future developments of a similar type.
Thank you. Any others? No? Right. I'm going to read the recommendations because I think that it's important that we're clear what we're agreeing to, and in this case there are quite a few. We're agreeing to approve the demolition of the existing pavilion on the basis of health and safety, approve the purchase of a temporary porter-cabin style changing facility once demolition has occurred, approve a public engagement exercise to inform the master planning of Jackie Baker's based on section 1 of the master plan attached to Annex 1, delegate authority to the Chief Executive to investigate the options for a future development on the site based on the master plan to include a new car park, new pavilion to include changing facilities and other sporting recreational facilities that might enhance the offer at the site, with a report to be presented to the overview, the scrutiny panel and cabinet once these options have been further explored, that the council explores facilities that will be installed that will encourage safe enjoyment of Jackie Baker's by girls and young women, and to ensure the temporary changing facilities are properly insured and secured. And finally, to recommend to Council a one-off 23-24 supplementary general fund revenue budget of £370,000 be approved for the demolition of the existing pavilion and the provision of a temporary porter cabin facility to be funded from the risk reserve. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. And we move on to item 7, which is public toilets refurbishment and renewal project, which is also Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I get all the good ones. Okay, this report proposes a schedule of investment in public toilets around the district. Budgets totalling 1.25 million with a mixture of revenue and capital funding have been identified. A further sum of £250,000 is anticipated, although not yet approved, via an external grant from Southern Water. The report proposes maintenance works at 7 sites. This will focus on addressing existing defects and is not a full refurbishment of the toilets, but it will return them to a much higher standard of repair. Examples of the work content can be found at Annex 1 with the estimated cost. The total spend on the The total spend on revenue repair work is £279,000, and subject to approval at Cabinet, it is proposed to undertake these works in the new year so that they are complete before the start of the 2024 season. The report also proposes capital works at 3 sites: Margate Clock Tower, Stone Bay and Botany Bay. These capital works will provide significantly improved and accessible facilities at all 3 sites. There are currently 27 public toilets in Thanet, and this report proposes works in 10 of those 27 locations. This investment is proposed to be the start of an anticipated wider and longer term programme of public toilet improvements, subject to further funding being identified. The report also proposes that a further report be taken to Cabinet before the end of October 2024 to provide an update on toilet refurbishment and improvement works. The report will update on the capital works programme and will propose next steps to address refurbishment or improvements at the public toilets not included in this initial phase. £400,000 of revenue funding is coming from earmarked reserves. In option 1, 279,000 will be allocated for revenue repairs and 121,000 revenue contribution to capital. However, it will, if we are required to undertake option 2, then the whole of the 400,000 will be allocated to revenue repairs. The Cabinet is recommending to Council that a one-off supplementary general fund revenue budget of £279,000 be approved for the repairs to existing facilities to be funded from the underspend identified at the end of 2022 to 23 and allocated to be earmarked reserves for investment in toilet facilities. Of the £749,000 budget for the public toilets refurbishment and renewal project within the 23-24 capital programme, the report suggests £450,000 is coming from borrowing and £121,000 contribution is coming from earmarked reserves, with financing of the remaining £179,000 to be identified at a later date. £400,000 of funding will be from Margate Town Deal funding, which is an external grant. Cabinet notes that £400,000 of approved capital budget is allocated for toilet facilities within the Margate Town Deal scheme in the 23-24 capital programme. It is estimated that Southern Water will allocate funding to the value of £250,000, as said earlier. Again, overview and scrutiny came up with a recommendation, and which again I'm happy to take on board and hope the Cabinet will as well. And that is that the Western Undercliff public toilets be added to the list of toilets for consideration when further funding becomes available. So therefore, Chair, I propose the recommendation in the report and to add the item from overview and scrutiny.
Thank you, Councillor Alban. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Duckworth. I think Councillor Pugh was first on 20.1.
Oh, thank you, Chair. You spoil me. Maybe it's the festive season and I'm feeling quite jolly. But I've got to be honest, Chair, and I've got to be honest, Councillor Alban, I really welcome this. I think it's much needed. It's a long time coming, particularly for not just any of our public toilets, but particularly some of the coastal toilets, when you think of many of the visitors to the district that come to the beaches, and of course some of the state of disrepair that our toilets are in. I think it's probably one of the first things that they see. You know, and we need to do better. Unfortunately, Councillor Cupp can't be here tonight. I know we all know that he was incredibly excited about public toilets when we were in administration last, yeah. And it's all he ever used to talk about, to be honest, Councillor Alban. So he probably spoke to you about it as well. So I know that he would, yeah, always. You know, so I know that he would welcome this as well. My only kind of concern or question would be, and this may have been brought up at overview and scrutiny, and I apologise if I'm repeating a question that was already put to you then or when they were scrutinising this, but considering that the majority of the toilets included within this first phase are coastal toilets, and under the previous administration we were looking at proposals for your leisure to take on the coastal toilets, not just the ones that are open now, but some of the ones that have been long closed, including the ones down at the crabbing pool in Minnis Bay, which, you know, if you spoke to some residents, half the residents remember those toilets and half of them didn't know they were there until you told them they were there, and they're now closed, and now suddenly they want them reopened. So, you know, it was quite an expanded offer, and they were not just going to take on the upkeep and running of coastal toilets, but try and reopen or re-provide more provision as well. So my question would be, particularly as this first phase is taken up with a lot of coastal toilets, has that been progressed, or if it's not, why not? Mainly because I think it would still be quite an interesting proposal if it can be pulled off, because it would mean that council's finances could go into supporting or refurbishing and providing more provision in our town centres, which, let's be honest, when we want more of our residents and visitors to visit our town centres and spend money and keep the high streets going, one of the complaints that I have from residents, not just from Birchington, but when they go to shop into Margate or Broadstairs or Ramsgate, is that there's very limited public toilets provision. So a lot of them, if they need to go to the toilet, they really struggle. So that was my question, really.
Do you want to answer that, Councillor?
I just want to be clear. Was your question about your leisure, or was it about because you mentioned your leisure first? Was it in relation to that, or was it in relation to the second part of what you were saying about the town centres?
Councillor Orban, it was kind of both. So it was kind of if your leisure would take on more of the coastal toilets, we could provide now more provision and more repairs to the high street toilets. But of course, they're important as well in general.
Yeah, well, we are still talking to your leisure to see whether or not what is viable. And I'm not sure how far we've progressed with that, to be quite honest. I must admit I haven't talked about that for a while. But I do know the officers have advised me that they are talking to your leisure to see whether they can take some over, will take some over, have the wherewithal to actually do that. So that is in progress as far as I'm aware. You're right about our town centres, and they are important, especially I know from Ramsgate when the town centre toilet was closed there because of antisocial behaviour and drug taking and God knows what else there, that it was heavily missed, it was heavily missed by the residents, especially the elderly residents who come into town. But I think what we've done with this part of the report now is identified effectively what are the worst and on the coast, so we can welcome our residents and our visitors to there to be actually do that. But certainly the next tranche, I think that is what we'll be looking at. So that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, as it happens, Councillor Pugh, I've had a conversation with the Chief Exec about that very subject this morning. And I think the reality is there's more work to be done on it. We certainly haven't ruled it out, but we'd have to be satisfied that it offers value for money because, as you know, your leisure aren't offering to take on the toilets as a charitable offer. There would be a quid pro quo, so we'd have to understand how that stacks up financially. It's not something we've ruled in or out, but we will be looking at it further. And I think the main priority for us has been making sure that there are some works done before next season on the toilets that most urgently need them, and we can do that through the current refurbishment budget. I think the other challenge, which we're all well aware of, is that there is concern about the opening hours, which are not always entirely predictable for residents who want to use the toilets, and I think we want to look at ways, if there are ways that we can do better, and your leisure might be part of that or they might not be part of that, but there's more work to be done, but we certainly haven't dismissed it as an idea.
Yeah, would you give my regards to Councillor Cupp and tell him I'm happy to see him at any toilet he wishes to use.
I'll tell him.
I'm sure he will appreciate
that. Sounds really inappropriate, Councillor Orban. I will send him your best and a Merry Christmas. That's what I'll do.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Orban. In our corner of the chamber, we greatly welcome this. This is excellent, and we're really pleased to see the scrutiny recommendation of adding the Western Undercliff toilets to the list, because, as you know, Ramsgate Town Council, we ended up putting some of our councillors' allowances into making sure that there were portaloos there during this last summer season, which were extremely well looked after and dealt with entirely respectfully by bathers, etc. So they were a really welcome facility. I wanted to ask, going back to Councillor Cupp's specialist subject, I know one of the things that he was talking about as a possibility in the mix for our public toilets in the future was partnership work with local businesses. Is that off the agenda now with this administration, or is that still under consideration? Thank you.
I haven't discussed that at all, be totally frank. Something maybe that we should be looking at to see whether we can get any local businesses prepared to invest on that. I think that's something Councillor Austin would be happy to discuss, and I'll come back to you on that. I'm pretty happy to.
Am I okay to come back on that? I was just thinking about it in terms of, as you know, with Ramsgate Town Council, with our climate change group, we're looking at adopting the refill scheme to encourage pubs and cafes and so on to allow people to go in and fill their bottle of water. And it felt to me like that was a sort of beginning of a discussion with some of the local coastal businesses about, you know, other facilities that they might be able to make available to non-customers. That was all.
I see. Sorry, I misunderstood what you.
That was what I was saying. I was saying, are we looking at potentially working with businesses to add to the offer of public toilet facilities? That was all.
I think that's quite difficult. I think because there are a lot of cafes and pubs that don't want people just walking in and out there without spending their money. And so, but I'll happy to discuss that, and I'll discuss with officers to see whether there is a way forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this brings me back to about 5 years ago, because Councillor Whitehead and myself were outside TDC's offices at a toilet protest when the Margate Clock Tower toilets ended up being closed. So, and similar to Councillor Austin, I'm a Portaloo, I'm like Portaloo spotter, I would say. So often when I'm cycling along Margate Seafront, I'm seeing how many Portaloos we have in the summer. Do we have the same as last year? How busy are they? And asking officers for more, or for them to be extended on for longer if the summer's getting longer. So I'm really happy that we've got the Margate Clock Tower toilets in writing as getting the funding, and also that Annex 2 is such a good high-level document showing which toilets have been considered, which are in the long-term plan, which are being done now, and where the funding is. My only question, I guess, is, I know, and this is a question that all the businesses in Margate would love the answer to, is, do we know when the Clock Tower toilets might get refurbished? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Yates. I think the Clock Tower toilets will be one of the three major refurbishments, or major projects, along with Stone Bay. And I think we're looking at not this coming season. We're looking at during 2025, but it's a bit early to put a precise programme on it because of the scale of the works and the required procurement and what have you. But yeah, 2025 would be an estimate at the moment.
Okay, members. No further discussion. I'm going to read the recommendations, which is going to take a little while, so you'll have to bear with me. Cabinet is asked to approve the schedule of works the report suggests in 3.1/3.2, either option 1 or option 2, dependent on the outcome of discussions with Southern Water, which will be undertaken using £400,000 of the funding from earmarked reserves. Under option 1, £279,000 will be allocated for revenue repairs and £121,000 revenue contribution to capital. Under option 2, the whole £400,000 will be allocated to revenue repairs. £450,000 of capital funding via borrowing and £400,000 from the Margate Town Deal funding external grant. Cabinet recommends to Council that a one-off supplementary general fund revenue budget of £279,000 be approved for the repairs to existing facilities to be funded from an underspend identified at the end of 2022-23 and allocated to earmark reserves for investment in toilet facilities. endorses the proposed financing of the existing £749,000 budget for the public toilets refurbishment and renewal project within the 2023-24 capital programme to be a mix of £450,000 of borrowing, a £121,000 contribution from earmarked reserves, with financing of the remaining £179,000 to be identified at a later date, with the actual financing of the capital programme being determined by the Section 151 officer as per Office of Delegations. Recommends to Council that a supplementary general fund budget, capital budget of £250,000 be approved for the refurbishment of existing Botany Bay toilets, subject to the outcome of discussions with Southern Water for funding to the value of £250,000. Approves a budget environment to be made if the discussions with Southern Water are not successful, as per option 2, with a environment of £121,000 from the budget for the revenue contribution to capital to be transferred to the revenue budget for repairs to existing facilities. Notes the £400,000 of approved capital budget is allocated for toilet facilities within the Margate Town Deal Scheme in the 2023-24 capital programme. Requests a further report be taken to Cabinet before the end of October 2024, which provides an update on toilet refurbishment and improvement works, including the outcome of the Southern Water financial contribution. The report should also propose next steps to address refurbishment or improvements at the public toilets not included in this initial phase. And finally, that the Western Undercliff public toilets be added to the list of toilets for consideration when further funding becomes available. Do members agree? Agree. I'm glad about that, so I'm not going to read it again. Thank you, members. Item 8 is the Tenant and Leaseholder Services Procurement, Responsive Repairs, Voids, Compliance and Planned and Cyclical Works Contract, which is Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader. Firstly, I would like to apologise to everyone present, because I think it's fairly certain that I'm not known for my brevity, but this is a particularly long one because it's a very, very complex topic. So, Cabinet is tonight being asked to authorise the following. The letting of a 10-year contract with provision to extend for a further 5-year period to enable a true alliance between contractors and client. This contract is for the provision of responsive repairs, voids, compliance, cyclical and planned works. It will also include an element of works for corporate properties. The contract will cover responsive repairs, voids, compliance, cyclical and planned works as listed, will provide an element of service for the Council's corporate properties, will provide an out-of-hours service for emergency repairs, and will maintain a customer contact centre for tenants and leaseholders of the Council to call to report repairs. In developing this contract, we have placed a strong focus on local delivery, directly employed local operatives, and the use of local material suppliers. We did this to add social value to the area through jobs and material supplies, provide the most efficient and responsive delivery through local supply, ensure that Thanet service is given priority through area buy-in and local knowledge, and to minimise carbon emissions by reducing travel time for operatives and material delivery. The level of work that goes into both procurement and organisation of a housing service of this scale is extraordinary, as is the progress that has been made within housing since we brought it back in-house. Our current contract was last extended in 2020. It cannot be extended further, which means that coming in this May as an administration gives little to no lead time to produce an extended in-house service across all areas, much as evidenced by my determination to bring housing back and produce in-house temporary housing and our first in-house rough sleeping accommodation, my general inclination is to create and promote in-house services wherever possible. Ideals always have to be considered in relation to realities in order to deliver results, and the security of service, especially when what is at stake is the quality of delivered service to a very large number of our residents. As such, focusing on areas that we can deliver in-house, such as minor works, and ensuring that our complex and specialist areas function and deliver without interruption is essential. As referenced in the report, we are now choosing to focus heavily on the local economy and housing procurement. Our contracts prioritise local jobs, local call centre, and include the requirement for local apprenticeships to build not only the local economy, but also build skills and employment opportunities. This, combined with our proposed in-house expansion of minor works to explore our delivery of direct services, allows us to deliver not only many highly complex work streams, but also build our own resilience. And the sheer scale of the number of new strategies being implemented and the considerable growth of our portfolio means that ensuring reliability of provision at a time when we are still a council with disproportionately low staffing for the scale of what we deliver means that considering the long-term future of all projects is essential, and testing the water in terms of in-house provision is a vital part of this. The service that now requires procurement is currently being delivered by Mears through a 9-year partnering term contract. This contract is due to expire on the 31st of March 2025, and due to the complexity of this contract, officers have started this exercise now to ensure that the right partnering contractor is found, ensuring that we source a contractor that fits the Council's ethos and culture. Since the tenant and leaseholder service was brought in-house, officers have ensured strong contractor management and have worked in true partnership with Mears. This has reaped rewards of improved customer satisfaction and performance that can be seen in the number of responsive repairs that are completed on time and the driving down of the void turnaround times. With only 5 years left on the Mears contract at the point of transition, the stability of the service and the issue of non-compliance with regulatory and legislative factors took logical priority over the exploration of potential options to replace the services of a partnering contractor. In preparing for this procurement, guidance has been sought from a consultant that has a wealth of experience in this area. They conducted a series of stakeholder workshops to assess what is needed and valued within the service. Their report recommends continuing with the same model of service delivery. In moving forward, we will apply lessons learnt from the current contract, keep a strong focus on local delivery and the employment and training of local operatives. It is proposed to continue the service in this way because this approach supports the management of the peaks and troughs of workload through seasonal demand, management of the risk of subcontractors going into liquidation, and the management of two-peeler obligations. Other positive aspects include this being a model that is supported by residents, that we can use this contract to tap into specialist areas without carrying out lengthy procurement exercises, and that a partnering contractor can onboard smaller local contractors that local authority procurement regulations make difficult for smaller companies to compete for. We have seen that this model works well with the right contract management and willingness to nurture the partnership to the benefit of both parties. This can be evidenced through the increases in the levels of customer satisfaction. When asked in 2021 and then again in 2023 for resident satisfaction with the way TDC deals with repairs and maintenance, residents gave us the following statistics. In 2021, 63.4% of residents expressed satisfaction with the service. In 2023, 77.75% of residents expressed satisfaction with the service. This is nearly a 15% increase in satisfaction in 2 years, and we are currently heading towards upper quartile performance when comparing with other social housing landlords, which is something that we should be hugely proud of as a department and as a council. In relation to the second lot included in this procurement, officers have calculated the work required to decarbonise the council's housing stock will cost in the region of £40 million. We are therefore proposing to include procurement for a bid and delivery partner for grant-funded works. The rationale behind this proposal is due to experience gained from our tower block retrofit and refurbishment programme. When grant funding becomes available to the sector, we have to be ready to bid and deliver the works within very tight timeframes. There is £4 million per year included for this element, but this will not be spent unless grant funding is available and a winning application is made. This level of spending has been included because our ambitions are to decarbonise the housing stock, provide warm and comfortable homes for residents, and achieve this at the best possible value. As evidenced by previous in-house investments within housing, we are interested in exploring which parts of our services work effectively in-house. Over the next couple of years, further work will be carried out to see if a direct labour organisation is the right model for TDC for the long-term future. As mentioned at the beginning of my introduction, this already includes extension of provision of some of our in-house services. This would include minor works, fencing and arborist works. We intend to keep these services available to call off throughout this contract as well, to provide resilience to the service and to explore our potential for delivery in a safe and managed way. The implementation of a DLO is a massive undertaking that would provide a very important frontline service, therefore must not be rushed and could not be effectively produced within 6 months. The principal issue is not the creation of a DLO or otherwise, it is the management of whichever model is chosen and the time and consideration put into its development. Exploring in-house work incrementally and providing safety to explore options within a secure framework provides the best of both worlds, informed by our knowledge of our housing stock and our needs as an area. We must be sure that the chosen model fits TDC's ethos, culture, and is right for the tenants and leaseholders. Tenants and leaseholders have expressed support for the chosen model, and we strongly believe that we can implement a local focus linking to our priorities and strategy through this form of delivery. The budget for this service comes from the Housing Revenue Account. The HRA is separate from the General Fund and is self-financing through rental and other income generated by HRA-owned land and property, and therefore is not supported by tax income. It is very important that value for money is obtained for the HRA. The value of this contract is £156 million, but only if it was to be spent in full and let for the full 15-year duration. This maximum equates to an estimate of just under £11 million per year. £4 million of this per year is set aside for grant-funded opportunities and will only be spent if such opportunities arise and if bids are successful. Once the corporate aspect of the contract has been removed and the £4 million per year for grant-funded capital works, the contract value is nearer £6.7 million per year. This is £2,200 per property per year, including void works, responsive repairs, and allowances for planned and cyclical works. This value is based on the previous year's spend, and the consultant has provided a cost model that shows that this value is within the industry norm. There was a lengthy discussion of this procurement at ONS, and a recommendation was made to explore performance-related pay and explore the ability to lock in a performance-related element. To look at this further, officers have carried out the recommendation to explore performance-related pay, and linked to research undertaken are proposing to not implement this within the contract. The reasons for not including this element within the contract are financial incentives can skewer the contractor's performance towards certain areas of the contract at the expense of others. A contractor may focus on the areas they need to ensure they perform in to maximise income and could neglect other areas. Contractors can potentially spin key performance indicators, referred to as KPI from this point on, to support good performance to gain the incentive. The focus for the contractor becomes achieving the KPI to receive the incentive, rather than consistent quality over the entire service. Disagreements can arise if both parties do not agree on if a payment should be awarded, and it often does not lead to true partnership working. By taking the performance-related incentive out of the discussion, we can improve the quality of the service. The success of a partnership relies on clear objectives, robust key performance indicators, and a commitment to continuous improvement. We will be ensuring that the contract allows robust performance management via the following: producing a well-defined scope and objectives of the contract, ensuring both parties have a mutual understanding of their responsibilities; measurable KPIs that align with TDC's strategic objectives; regular performance reviews that create a collaborative environment for feedback and improvement. Where performance is poor and does not improve with these measures, there is the allowance through the contract to apply a service improvement plan, and if performance does not improve, lead to a break clause for that service element, meaning that we can remove that element of work and procure our own contractor. This in itself is a financial incentive, because if the partnering contractor loses elements from the scope of work, their income will be reduced. A huge amount of work has gone into the preparation of this procurement exercise, and Ms O'Sullivan and the team have worked incredibly hard. Her commitment and expertise at overview and scrutiny was exceptionally clear and is recognised by all in housing. I move the recommendation set out in the report, and thank you everyone for bearing with me.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. I don't think anyone could accuse you of not being thorough, as usual. But it is an important subject, and I note that, you know, I viewed remotely the lengthy discussion that went on at scrutiny, which I think was valuable and useful, and I thought there were some excellent responses and explanations there from officers and from yourself. So I think that it has been properly explored, even though nobody's chosen to come forward and speak on it tonight. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Yates. Members, have any comments? Okay, so the recommendation the recommendation is for the letting. Cabinet's asked to authorise the letting of a 10-year contract with provision to extend for a further 5-year period to enable a true alliance between contractors and client. This is for the provision of responsive repairs, voids, compliance, cyclical and planned works. The contract will also include an element of works for corporate properties. Members agree? Agree. Thank you. And we move on to item 9, which is the Tenant and Leaseholder Service Key Performance Indicators, Q1 and Q2 Housing Performance Report. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Leader. This report provides members of the Cabinet with a review of the performance of the Council's Tenant and Leaseholder Service, TLS, for Q1 and 2, 23-24. It includes performance information relating to 2 areas of TLS. These are operational performance against key indicators for the period 1st of April 2023 to 31st of June 2023 and 1st July 23 to September 23, and the management of tenant and leaseholder health and safety as of 31st June and 31st September 23. As evidenced by the thorough nature of these reports, a huge amount of work goes into both collecting and analysing data within housing, and the comprehensive coverage of our performance is something that I believe officers involved deserve significant credit for. I would like especially to praise the new dashboard-style reporting, which I believe makes information more accessible and very clear to understand, and also welcome the inclusion of in-depth reporting on our tower block retrofit and refurbishment programme. This is a huge piece of work that has already included an inclusive and comprehensive resident consultation. An inclusion of this as a separate work stream is exceptionally positive, as I believe it is of interest to both residents and members. I'm heartened that gas compliance only has one outstanding case and that this is linked solely to very complex access issues, as this indicates the level of effort we have made and are making to ensure that we are protecting residents. The drop in tenant arrears is extremely positive considering the level of financial stress that many residents are currently facing, and I believe this says a huge amount about the support that our team are giving to residents to help them access support that they may be entitled to and support them when times are challenging. Our work in relation to voids is also very pleasing. Faster turnaround times mean more families accommodated more quickly, which is essential to reduce disruption to families and provide secure accommodation as quickly as possible. Ms O'Sullivan's reports are always very thorough, and this is no exception. I want to recognise all of the work that goes into collating and presenting this information and extend my thanks to Ms O'Sullivan and all involved. Thank you.
So you're moving that we note the report?
I'm moving. Sorry, microphone on. I'm moving that we note the report.
Is there a seconder? Well, everybody wants to do that. Councillor Keane has seconded the report. Members, any comments?
No.
Okay, and I'd like to thank Mr O'Sullivan and the team for the report, because I think that one of the most satisfying things over the recent period of this council is the way that we've moved on from East Kent housing, and I think, you know, we are very proud of our housing team in all its aspects, and in respect of the TLS service in particular, but we're excited by the work that's being done and look forward to more of it. So, members, that's agreed, yeah? Agreed. Thank you. And that concludes tonight's meeting at 8:10. Live stream the meeting will now end. Thank you to members and officers for their attendance and participation.